want to talk about the Jaime Munguia win against Eric Bazinian. This was, I thought, the exact right fight for Jaime Munguia. He comes back after a few months from that loss to Canelo Alvarez, and he gets an opponent that has a great record, that is highly ranked, but isn't really all that dangerous. Not a big puncher, Eric Bazinian. So Munguia goes in there, and it feels like a cliche way to describe something, but that was a very Jaime Munguia type of fight, right? Like, it was a fight where Munguia, started off a little bit slow, had a game plan, ditched the game plan, came out and just started winging punches, looked vulnerable at times to a technical fighter, just like he did against Sergey Derevyanchenko, and then eventually turned on the gas late to come up with a big finish. Against Derevyanchenko, it was the big knockdown, the 12th round. Against Eric Bazinian, it was the knockout in the 10th round. Like, Jaime Munguia gonna Jaime Munguia, Lance. He just is going to be this guy forever, it seems like. What did you think of Munguia's performance in that fight?
Yeah, no, I thought that I agree with a lot of the points that you're making. I think that the thing that struck me about that fight is that when he sensed sort of this desperate hour was taking hold, because look, we all had it close. I know that there was some specific broadcasters, we won't name names, but they were making eye contact with other people around Top Rank, and they're like, hey, this guy's winning, Bazinian, he's winning, right? And the Top Rank's like, yeah, it's pretty close. It was very close. But when he had to, I mean, he came up with this plan. I'm going to take it easy in the 9th, and then I'm going gangbusters in the 10th and try to finish this guy. And that's exactly what he did. And for me, the fans loved it. They ate it up. And so it's like he has this flair for the dramatic, which I think needs to be applauded. Jaime Munguia, for all the crap that he takes about, how he can get in trouble on the scorecards or how often he gets hit, he's a damn entertaining fighter. I mean, I've always kind of loved this guy. And he's going to bring the drama, even against Canelo Alvarez. I mean, those first 3 rounds were so entertaining. He gets knocked down. He did his best for a guy that's almost a decade younger. And look, he gets the victory here. And really, like I wrote this in the story, like, the world is kind of like his oyster right now. He's going to have both Golden Boy and Top Rank after him. I know Bob Arum and Top Rank have some good plans about bringing him to Mexico and doing.
What is your take on this? Because my understanding is that Munguia is a top-ranked fighter. I know Golden Boy's been putting out these signals that he's still under contract with them, but my understanding is that he is a top-ranked fighter. And to your point, Top Rank is making long-term plans with Munguia.
They are absolutely. Yeah, I spoke to Bob Arum, and he told me that as their ESPN deal is going to
wind down.
Yes, winding down. Yes, exactly. One of their plans is to stage more fights in Mexico to really kind of show the passion that exists with the greatest boxing audiences. So to be able to stage these fights and then show them worldwide, and there's no one better really than Jaime Munguia at this point, short of Canelo Alvarez, to show just how much passion the Mexican fight fans have. And so if they can bring him to Tijuana, like they're talking about doing, or, somewhere else in the country, and have him fight, one of these super middleweights who is so talented, some of these other contenders, I think would be great theater given everything that we know about Jaime Munguia and his fighting style, which is unpredictable, like as you mentioned.
Very unpredictable. So I'm all for them bringing him to Mexico. I called the fight with Jaime Munguia in Tijuana several years ago. It was a great atmosphere. I think it was a bull ring, just an awesome crowd in Tijuana. The question is, who is he fighting against? Because if it's Jaime Munguia versus the equivalent of Jimmy Kelly, I don't care. I don't want to see that. I've seen that. I've done that. I've read the book. Munguia has fought enough of these guys. And you touched on the depth of talent at super middleweight. Obviously, Canelo Alvarez is at the top. There's a big gap between him and everybody else at 168. But there are some really good fights you can make at 168. And there is a really good fight singular in the top-ranked stable that you can make right away. And I'm talking about Christian Mbili, who just fought last month, who beat Sergey Derevyanchenko, who is kind of the Canadian version of Jaime Munguia in that he's a whole lot of offense and not a lot of defense. That is a tremendous action fight. I don't want to see, Lance, those guys in against anyone else. Because you can throw the other names out there. And I saw Munguia's interview afterwards. Said he wants to fight Edgar Berlanga. Great. Yeah. Berlanga is going to come back against some cab driver in Puerto Rico in February to get his legs back, to have his comeback fight after Canelo Alvarez. Caleb Plant, good luck making that fight. Like, good luck making a Caleb Plant fight, cross promotion. I don't see that happening next for Jaime Munguia. They've gone down the Jamal Charlo road. That doesn't work. It's got to be Christian Mbili. You've got two guys top ranked at 168. You could make it for a vacant title. You could make it for an interim title, whatever you want to do. But that's the fight to make. That is contender against contender. I think it's going to be on Top Rank to put their foot down this situation. Because Munguia and Fernando Beltran, if history is, if past is prologue, then they're going to look for kind of a lesser fight down in Mexico. Like, we'll do the fight in Tijuana. We'll take a little bit less money. We'll do a big crowd at this gate. Nobody cares. Nobody cares against Jaime Munguia in against Spike O'Sullivan or whoever else, like any of these other type of fighters. We care now about Jaime against contenders. And Jaime said after the fight, look, I want Edgar Berlanga. I want Caleb Plant. He named Christian Mbili. Make that fight happen. That's got to be the next fight, full stop. Because if it's not the next fight for both those guys, that is the boxing equivalent of flushing money right down the toilet. Because nobody cares about those guys in with anybody else.
What if you knew that the Mbili fight was coming, but
we got to do that again? Like, we got to build up the Mbili fight even more? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
you're probably going to have to do that again. But the interesting thing is that, look, out of all of the turns of events, all this long wait that David Benavidez had, as far as my calculations on the who's next and the mandatories, it's the WBC mandatory for Canelo Alvarez, who is Mbili, right? So he's next in line. So look,
I mean, let's Canelo, do you think there's any chance on God's earth that Mauricio Suleiman orders that fight?
None at all. But Canelo is probably going to be picking another opponent anyway in the first place, right? For May, no matter who it is. So as the whole thing plays out, Munguia and Billy makes perfect sense for, sometime by spring 2025. I could see that fight taking place. So if we can get you there by then, Chris, hey, it's not a bad scenario.
But who are you putting Mbili and Munguia in with in the interim? Like, that's my question. Like,
Munguia's got to have the bull ring fight. You're just gonna have to bear with us. It doesn't really matter who the opponent is. That event has got to happen. Fine. We're gonna see Munguia will get another victory and then move closer to Mbili.
And then you've got Mbili fighting somebody up in Canada.
Right. That's gonna happen. That's gonna happen. It happens in the sport.
God, I don't need to see either one of these guys in with.
This is the thing, right? You're absolutely right. We got to bang the drum for it not to happen. It's gonna happen.
It's just wasting money. Like, and look, I got a firsthand view, a bird's eye view of the Jaime Munguia experience, where he is a tremendously active fighter in terms of fights. Like, he doesn't sit on the sideline, but. It's Munguia against C-level opponent, against D-level opponent. The fights he's had in Mexico have been, D-ish level opponents. Like, he hasn't fought. And look, maybe that was part of the problem when he steps up in class and goes up against Canelo Alvarez, where he hasn't faced anyone remotely close to that level. I mean, look, I don't know how a Munguia Mbili fight goes. Top of my head, I'd probably favor Munguia a little bit more experience. I didn't love what I saw from Mbili against a one-handed Sergey Derevyanchenko. I thought he could have done more to get him out of there. I would make Munguia a favorite, but there is a risk level to it. And I want to see them take that risk, because if he beats Mbili, all of a sudden then you can start dictating to a Caleb Plant. You could start saying we're the A side against Edgar Berlanga. Like, there are things you can do if and when you win that fight. If you don't take it, though, you're just giving people what they don't want. And that's just becoming a problem with Munguia.
Yeah, and I agree with you that the WBC is never going to strip Canelo, but Canelo kind of let that IBF belt go.
Because they made him. Like, they're the ones that were talking about the IBF. Yeah. They said you got to do it.
Yeah, but I could see him again, especially, the things that he told you he did with Munguia in the first place. I could see a scenario where
Munguia didn't take that too well, did he?
No, he didn't. But he walks away from the WBC opportunity and says, "Go ahead and let those guys fight for the belt. I've got 2 other belts as it is, and I'm busy doing these other things." I could
I'd
see
like to see
that.
him. I mean, it's a different conversation, but I'd like to see Canelo walk away from every belt but the Ring Magazine belt. Like, stop paying people. Like, you don't need it.
Yeah,
Like, you are Canelo Alvarez. You're the biggest star in
true.
boxing. Like, I get it. Maybe a Terrence Crawford wants to fight for the unified championship at 168, so maybe then at least 2 of those belts have some meaning. But if you're Canelo, they don't carry any extra weight. Like, once you became undisputed, you should just walked away from all of them. Then you are Canelo. You are the biggest star.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
don't need those belts.